episode 165 of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary with Catherine
and Kristen, where we believe there's nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for our virtual book club where we take one book a month and dive into all the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hi, Catherine.
Hey, Kristen.
So, it is the last Friday in April. So, for us, spring break is officially over. For us, we had a week off to celebrate Easter as a province. Not the whole province having a week off, but schools. Yeah. I had just had the week off to celebrate Easter. So, we just thought we'd cover, did you do anything fun?
Yeah, so I had a long weekend. I had Friday and Monday. Friday and Monday off. And it was my first, holidays or, stat holidays since New Year's Day, which is, way too long.
Yeah, it's a long time.
So brutal. But anyway.
Yeah.
It was a great long weekend. Me and Jeff watched the 3 extended Lord of the Rings movies.
Ooh.
Which I always love.
Yeah.
Love them so much. So that was great. I don't know what else I did. I read, I think. What did I read? Yeah, I read a book that was calling itself a romance book, but it didn't have a happily ever after. But literally in the title, it was a dark sapphic romance, and I'm like, you can't be a romance with capital R if it ends sadly. And there's not a second book.
What's a sapphic mean?
Women together, lesbian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was disappointing.
That is disappointing.
But yeah.
Yeah, I would not be pleased.
No.
I would not be okay.
And I looked at it after, because I have Kindle Unlimited for a few months now because there was a deal. But I looked at the beginning after, because when you open a Kindle Unlimited book, it skips all the trigger warnings. And you
does it?
For mine it does.
Notice.
Yeah, so you can go back when you open it at the beginning. I usually have to go back. I don't know if it's a setting I have on my Kindle app. Could be. But I went back to the beginning, and there was a note that it wasn't a happy ending, and I was like, oh.
You probably should have read that.
Fair, I guess, but also, I didn't think that was allowed. I thought that was illegal.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, yeah, so mostly that. What about you? What'd you do?
So, obviously I have kids, so the Easter Bunny visited my house, which was fun. I officially finished my master's degree on Sunday, Easter Sunday.
What a wild day to finish.
I know. What a day to have my final project be due. So I've essentially just been catching up on things that I've been putting off since because of my master's, and being well, I'll do it when I'm done because I'll have more time on my hands. Mm-hmm. So not saying I haven't done laundry in 2 years. I have, obviously.
No, you just buy new clothes every time.
But I've sort of let the folding pile up over the past few weeks. So I started folding my clothes. I want to give my house a little clean before going back to work. Mm-hmm. And so my husband got me a one of those little scenes that you put on your bookshelf.
Oh yeah.
So I got one of those for Christmas, and I haven't touched it because I've been putting it off. So I did that, which was nice. And that was really fun. I bought a new puzzle, so I started that. I've just been give me all the crafts.
No, I love that.
And, cleaning my house. And it's funny because we went to the bookstore, and I bought the 2 twisted crowns which is the sequel to One Dark Window.
Oh, I should have known that. I was like, what's that?
Yeah. So I bought that book. I also bought another book because it had pretty sprayed edges. But it was on...
which one it was?
I don't know. I don't know what it's called right now, actually, because I've never heard of it before. But I read the inside. I'll tell you about it later when I dig it out of wherever it is and find it. I can share with you the title. But it was on the shelf with all of, like, the stuff that I already like.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, this looks good. So I picked it up. I was also going to buy When the Moon Hatched, and thank God I didn't, because I got home and I looked and I already had it.
I was going to say, didn't we have that conversation? Because I was like, I have the hardcover, and you were like, I have the paperback. It's huge.
It is. So, like, thank God I was like, I don't think I should buy this one. Thank God I didn't, because I already have it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, yeah, I've just been doing, like, I want to call it relaxing, even though now that I'm saying it out loud, it doesn't feel very relaxy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I guess wants instead of needs.
Yeah, that's the big thing. So, and, you know, I had a family visiting from another province, and so, like, yeah, we were just hanging out.
Yeah.
So it's been great. Now we're just gearing up for, we have 9, so, like, I know it's still break, but I'm thinking ahead.
Mm-hmm.
We have 9 weeks left until school is out for the summer, and I'm stoked.
Wild.
I'm stoked. I can't wait.
Yeah. It's crazy.
For my summer. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I've done.
Love it.
It feels like a lot and nothing at the same time.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's a lot to a lot of the things. So, like,
yeah.
Puzzles are my favorite. I could spend hours and hours on puzzles.
Yeah. It's a new one that I bought, actually. It's, essentially, it's like a Roman painting of, like, it looks like they're in some sort of old school, like, Colosseum, and there's a bunch of, like, those white Roman statues around, and then there's a ton of gold frame paintings of Colosseums. It's cool.
Yeah. Fun. Sounds hard, though.
It is very hard, but it's fine. Anyway, so yeah.
Sweet. So, just a heads up to everybody as we get into it, this is not a spoiler-free zone, and things might get saucy.
Not really. Last week was the saucy week, and it wasn't even, it was more flowery than saucy.
Yeah, this is like the morning after, literally.
Yeah. So, I guess, I don't really remember what happens last week, so I guess...
they stole a card.
They stole a card. I couldn't even remember that happened last week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They went to market day, and...
Yes, and...
that was a disaster.
It was a disaster, and, like, Hauth found out that there's a kid hiding out with the disease and who's infected, so he makes a big show of, like, punishing the parents. Only Elm is pissed off about it, so tries to stop it, and Elspeth helps by helping the kid escape, and in the process, she hurts a guard. Yeah, something like that. She hurts one of the destriers, and then they all have to, like, go back to the house and pretend nothing happened, and Hauth is suspicious of her because of her broken wrist, but she can still have sex with it, and it's fine. So that's what happens. Her and Ravyn have sex.
He kisses her, not on her mouth.
Yes, he asks if he can kiss her, and she says, "You already did," and he says, "Not on your mouth." So, yeah. They have sexy times. And then we're picking up right where that left off is, like, the morning after. Mm-hmm. So it is, week for chapters 28 to 35, aka the end of One Dark Window with Rachel Gillig. So the opening, I guess, card for this chapter says the Providence cards are ageless. Their magic does not fade. They do not decay with time. They cannot be destroyed. Providence cards are ageless. So, interesting. I feel like we're going to end the book by them being destroyed. Yeah. I know you're not going to tell me. And I don't mean the end of this book. I mean the end of the series.
Yeah. You finished this book.
Yeah. I have finished this book, so I know that it doesn't happen in this book, but it feels like they're just going to destroy the cards.
Well, yeah, to say they can't be destroyed, you're like, that's setting us up for something.
Yes, yeah.
Feels like.
So Elspeth sneaking out of Ravyn's room in the morning. So she slept in his room all night. He's still asleep, and she's trying to, like, get out. She's, like, trying to rifle through all their clothes and can't find the dress she had on, which is hilarious. But, so she, like, finds her, like, undergarment, like, her, I don't know what you even call it, her, like, whatever
chemise.
It is. Yeah, or chemise or something, like, the thing she wears under her dress. She finds that and is like, good enough, and puts it on. And is gonna have to, like, sneak through the house in her underclothes, like, not suspicious at all.
Yeah.
And then she looks at the door and she's like, well, shit, it's like a really old school door, and she's worried that it's gonna creak when it opens and wake him up. And I'm like, why are, like, I guess it's her, like, personality. Like, why would she be concerned about waking him up?
Yeah, I don't really get why she's sneaking so much.
I don't know. Anyways, so she does manage to open the door without making a ton of noise, and she closes it behind her. And then it's hilarious. She hears somebody go, well, did you have a good time last night? Or something like that. And I immediately was like, shit, it's Elm.
Mm-hmm.
And then she turns around, and it's Jesper.
I love it.
Yeah, I do too, because she obviously, like, is accepting of it and, like, not, I don't know about likes it, but, like, is more friendly and is sort of like, teasing about it, as opposed to Elm, who's just straight up like, ugh, you're the worst.
Yeah, doesn't trust her at all.
Yeah. So, obviously, Elspeth is, like, super embarrassed and tries to be like, nothing happened. And just goes to her room to change. And Jesper's like, all right, I'll see you down at breakfast. So she goes to get dressed, and then she goes down to breakfast, and they're all sitting around the table, and Ravyn walks in last. And he is, like, really lighthearted. Like, he goes over and greets his parents, and, like, kisses his mom's cheek, and steals a piece of toast, and, like, he's very, like, happy-go-lucky, and then he finally sits down, and he just looks right at her, and he smiles and says, morning. And, like, she is, like, meanwhile, like, trying not to look at him. She's turning red. She's blushing. Like, very much, like, virtuous maiden who, like, wasn't so virtuous. And meanwhile, Elm is just, like, confused. And he's like, dude, what's up with you? And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, you're smiling. That's weird. So just the fact that he's smiling is problematic.
Yeah.
But then Elm looks at, like, how she's reacting to him and how he's acting towards her, and he gets it.
It takes him a while.
Yeah. And he finally gets it, and he just looks disgusted, and he's like, well, I've lost my appetite. And I'm just like, dude, like, fuck off.
I know.
A part of me is like, do you have a secret crush on her or something?
Yeah. Who knows?
So it's just a really cute moment. But then, of course, Emery, who's there, because he ran away from the castle.
That last week.
He did. He ran away from the castle last week, but in the story last night. And they have to send him back today. So he's there, and he has breakfast with them first, and then he decides he's going to start coughing up blood. So, obviously...
sours the mood.
Yes, it does. So, Jesper goes to get the carriage ready to bring Emery back to Stone. So, her and Emery... or, not her. So, Elspeth, Emery, Ravyn, and Elm go for a walk in the garden because Emery wants to see the trees. So at first, Elspeth and Ravyn walk together, and Ravyn tells her that he's glad that she gets to see Emery this way, because he's having sort of a normal day. He's not, like, off his rocker today.
Yeah.
And he just says, like, he doesn't really get to have normal days anymore. And then Nightmare pipes up for the first time since last night. And that startles Elspeth because she sort of forgot. Not that he was there, I don't think, but she, I guess, got so caught up in not having him in her head that she was startled when he finally pipes up. Mm-hmm. So Ravyn is like, "Oh, are you okay?" Because I guess he saw that she got startled. And she's like, "Oh, it's fine." But then he hauls her under a willow and asks, like, why she left him this morning. And, like, I'm sort of torn because she seemed very nonchalant about giving away her V card. And, like, this whole thing with, like, having a chaperone and, like, all that jazz, like, I can't understand where this society stands on premarital sex.
Yeah, I have no idea, because even when her aunt saw her walk away with him at the ball, she was like, "You're gonna ruin our family because he'll find out you're infected." It wasn't like, "Don't have sex." It was like, so it was more because he would find out about her infection and then they'd be murdered.
Yeah. So
it's hard to tell what is happening.
Anyway, just like if it's a very scandalous society, and like he kisses her in public a lot for everybody to see. Mm-hmm. Like this section anyway.
Yeah.
So it just, like, I just don't understand where they're at. Because she gets so embarrassed talking about their physical relationship.
Yeah.
And I just, like, if it's such a big deal to talk about, then it must be a big deal to do. And yet she didn't have any sort of hesitation or doubt. Yeah. Not even a comment in her head of, "Oh, I probably shouldn't be doing this, my virtue." Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or, like, what will people think? So I don't really get it. Anyway, besides the point. So he asks, like, "Why did you leave me this morning?" And she said she wanted to let him rest. But he tells her he doesn't want rest. He just wants her. That would get tiring.
That is a line. That is a line.
Yeah. And then they start kissing. And Emery... yeah. The whole thing under the willow, do you know what it reminds me of? Blood and Ash.
Yes.
I don't remember I just remember from... Is it just from Blood and Ash?
Yeah.
Because remember at the beginning when they're still in the castle?
Yes.
And her and what's-his-face head into a willow and, like, make out hardcore.
And then everyone gets murdered while they're making out.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So Emery interrupts them again. So, like, Emery's got terrible timing. Coughing up blood, ruining the cute moment. Now, like, interrupting their kissing. Like, he just needs to take a chill pill. And he just says that he thought that she was here to kiss him. But not in a romantic way. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. Like, he wasn't, like, jealous. It was more of the fairy tale of the girl kisses the sick boy and heals him, and then he saves the kingdom from dark magic.
Yeah.
So, like, he was just like, "Oh, I thought you were here to save me, to, like, heal me." But then Elm chimes in that, like, "Oh, yeah, but this time the girl has blood on her hands." So it's just reinforcing that he does not trust her. So on their way back from the garden, she leaves Elm and Ravyn to bicker about Elm not trusting her, and she asks Emery a question. She wants him to use his magic to try and see the Shepherd King and see his secrets. She doesn't really say it like that, but that's what she wants.
Yeah.
So he does, and he tells her he sees her, but also a creature curled around her spine, woven into her. And she asks how long she has until he takes her over entirely, and he just tells her not long. And I'm like, is her degeneration happening whether she wants to or not? Or could she say, I'm not going to use his magic anymore and be fine?
I feel like she's probably past that. Like, there has to be a moment where she passes it a bit. Because, like, he's talked out of her mouth before without her saying he could. So, and he's getting stronger. So I feel like at this point, she just doesn't really have a choice.
It just seems like it went really downhill really fast.
Yeah. But it, like, the beginning of the story, they were just like, and she's never done this. And then she was like, every day I'm going to use his magic. And it's like, this was a jump.
But, like, really, it's only been, 4 times, 5 times total? Mm-hmm. So, like, wow, you really can't use him very much.
No.
So she asks how long she has until he takes her over entirely, and Emery tells her that she doesn't have long. And he tells her that he sees the figure standing in the room he built for the spirit of wood, whispering something. So, like, this room, this, like, chamber is important. The one that's in ruins on Ravyn's property.
Yeah.
Then Emery starts reciting something and says, there once was a girl, clever and good, who tarried in shadow in the depths of the wood. There was also a king, a shepherd by his crook, who reigned over magic and wrote the old book. The two were together, so the two were the same. And, like, this is a rhyme that Elspeth already knew because Nightmare recited it, I'm assuming, more than once.
Mm-hmm.
So she finishes it. The girl, the king, and then Nightmare says in her head, and the monster they became. So, like, will this riddle come back in the next book, I wonder? Like, will it make more sense, or is it just...
Well, it's the very end of this book, it kind of comes up.
Yeah, but... Anyway, it just... So, yeah. We've heard it before.
Yeah. So,
I guess Emery had his eyes closed, and then he opens them and sees that her eyes are yellow. And he, like, starts... He's crying, but not, like, a loud sob. He's just got some tears running out of his eyes. And he says that it's something out of a terrible dream. And then she feels bad for making him look and use his magic. Because obviously, his magic's making him degenerate. So, like, him using his magic is causing him to be worse.
Yeah.
So she feels bad. And then she asks him not to tell anybody what he saw. And he says that he won't. But also he says, like, the best part about this is I'll probably forget this in the morning. Because that's how my degeneration is working.
Yeah.
So then he just says goodbye. And gets on the carriage. So then we move into part 3 of the novel. It's called The Blood. So the card for this chapter says there's no escape from the salt. Magic is everywhere, ageless. To the spirit of the wood, the exactor of balance, our lives are but of a butterfly, fleeting. Magic is at our birth, so too will it be at our death. There is no escape from the salt. So, like, we had that the Providence cards are ageless, and now magic is everywhere and ageless. So,
interesting.
Yes. So someone is running with children through the forest, and, like, the children are afraid. So the person starts lifting the children one by one into a stone chamber, but somebody was already there waiting with a scythe card. And then all of a sudden, pain sears their every bone, and they cough up blood, and they fall until the world goes dark. So then Elspeth wakes up. She is in the stone chamber, covered in dirt, in her nightgown. So obviously she sleepwalked. I don't know. And she asks, she asks why Nightmare brought her here, and he says he needed to see something. So she's at the base of the magical stone and sees something like obscured by dirt, so she wipes it off. It's an inscription, but we don't know what the inscription says. And she's like, well, why would somebody write an inscription at the base of a stone like this? And Nightmare's like, is that all you see? And then she notices the grass forms like a long rectangle, and she realizes it's a grave. And she's like, oh, I mean, we are at the edge of a cemetery, and the magical stone must be a marker, like a stone marker.
But it is weird, because it's like, the stone... Oh, no, never mind. I forgot something that comes up next book, but I was like, how did the cards get in the stone if there's a body underneath it? And we're thinking, like, who owns that body? But I remember now because it's in the next book. So
okay.
Sorry.
Great. Way to tease us all.
Yeah, basically. Oops.
So she just asks, like, who's buried here? And Nightmare's like, don't you know? So, like, insinuating that it's him.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden she's surrounded by the smell of salt, and she can feel herself falling, and she falls into darkness. But before she, I guess, passes out, she gets a glimpse of her fingers, and they're obviously covered in dirt and blood. And I'm like, where did that come from? It's just weird.
But this is another moment of, like, she's not asking him to take over, and he's just taking over. Yeah. Like, when she fell asleep outside, or woke up outside, she was like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
Obviously, he brought her out there. And, like, this moment, she's like, how did I get my arms so dirty?
Yeah. She wakes up in her own bed, and she was like, oh, it was all a dream. But then she looks at her arms, and obviously they're covered in dirt. So she was like, I guess it wasn't a dream. So he just got her back to her bed.
Yeah. Which is nice. At least this time he didn't make her sleep outside and get hypothermia.
Yeah. So she tells Nightmare that, like, it's enough. And that whatever he is, the Shepherd King is long dead. And just, like, leave her alone. And he responds that he cannot do that, dear one. So, like, this is sort of what I don't understand. Like, yeah, he's being a bit of a dick, but he also seems to care for her. Like, why else would he call her dear one? You know what I mean? So I'm like, could they be related in some way? Like, it just seems like he cares about her more than he either is letting on, or, like, more than he wants to admit, or, like, maybe he was a decent guy after all. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that you do that. Stop with the shoulder shrugs.
I'm sorry.
Are one of those things correct?
Some things are correct.
Ugh. Anyway, he does seem to care for her. Like, why else would he call her dear one?
Yeah.
I still think they're related. But then she just tells him that this is still her life, and it's her soul. And he counters that it's a soul he is protected. Like, he protected her from the physicians when she was 11? 8? However old she was?
It's been 11 years, so I think 8.
8?
I think she was 8. Maybe. Who knows?
So he protected her then. He protected her from the Crown Prince in the road the other day. He protected her from the Destriers, like yesterday in the market. He protected her from Ravyn and Elm when they were highwaymen. Like, he's protected her from everybody. Mm-hmm. And essentially she would be dead if not for him, is what he says. Yeah. And she's like, yeah, but so would you. Well, you would also be dead. So, like, she was like, I don't don't go saying that you did that for my benefit, because you didn't. You did it for you.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm like, maybe. But also maybe a little bit for her.
Well, yeah. But if she ceased to be alive, what would happen to his soul? Like...
Would it go back to the card, maybe?
Yeah. Would it go back to the card? Would it just, like, float out like a ghost?
Mm.
Would he be able to animate her corpse? Yeah. These are the questions.
These are the questions. So
these are the days of our lives.
So they're, like, having a fight, I guess. So she calls him a monster. And he just says yes. You're not wrong.
Fair.
So she doesn't want to deal with him today because there's too much at stake. Because apparently they're looking for the well card today. And she tells Nightmare that it's so she can be rid of him. And he tells her that she has so little time. And she asks what he means by that. But he just fades away. So I'm like, so little time, like, as in before he takes over, before they're discovered, like, before what?
Yeah.
So she goes down the stairs and Elm is waiting for her and immediately asks what's wrong. And this is sort of, like, part of the reason why I'm like, does he have a thing for her too? Because, like, he immediately knows that something is wrong.
Yeah.
And, like, asks. So I'm just like, dude. So he tells her that she looks uneasy. And she just says she hasn't been sleeping well. And he assumes it's because of Ravyn's absence. So we actually had a time jump, we're learning now, of about a week. They brought Emery back, and the king was just pissed over everything that happened during Market Day. And about Emery disappearing, so he has kept the Destriers sequestered for a week of, like, training and patrol and stuff like that. So she hasn't seen them in a week.
Yeah.
However, her and Jesper, I want to say they've been writing letters, but, like, it could have just been that Jesper sent her a letter. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. She also received a letter from her dad inviting her and the Hughes to Spindle House for her half-sister's name day. And I got really mad about this. I got so angry.
Why?
You read the book. They had a full-on fucking, like, ball.
Oh, yeah.
Across 2 days.
The king is there.
The king is there.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, for Elspeth's name day at the beginning of the book, they had a dinner that she didn't even stay for, and her dad said nothing.
Yeah.
And literally her dinner was her dad, her stepmom, her two half-sisters, and Ione and her. Like, not even her aunt and uncle were invited.
True.
So, like...
He's picking favorites.
Yeah, and it really pisses me off.
It's fair.
Anyway, so... The plan was to seal the well card when they went to Spindle House today. For the party. Mm-hmm. So, she gets ready. Her and Elm walk to Spindle House, because it's apparently right around the corner. And Elm tells her, like, the king wasn't happy about Emery leaving, or that a child escaped and Destrier was injured at Market Day. But he said, like, that sort of makes him distracted. And it makes... So, like, he also says that his dad wants to find the twin alders by solstice. And I just don't, like... I don't understand their plan. Like, how are they supposed to find a little tiny card that no one has seen in 500 years? Like,
yeah.
I don't get what the plan is in searching for it.
Well, and, like, the king has searched everywhere. He has, like, a map and he's just marking off where it's left. But, like, how would he ever find it?
Yeah, like, it literally could be anywhere. It could be buried, like, 10 feet underground.
And it doesn't seem like he's sending, like, the destriers to go search for it. Like, who's he
No.
even sending to search for it? I'm like, doesn't matter if the king wants to get it by then. He's just not going to.
Yeah, I don't understand what his strategy is for
Yeah.
finding it. Like, oh, he wants to find it. That's great. But, like, I'm sure everybody in his line has wanted to find it, and
Yeah, exactly.
no one has been able to. So, like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, you're not gonna just find it.
No.
But I want it.
Yeah. That's how it feels.
Yeah.
So Elspeth recites a few lines about being wary the green in the trees. And, like, she didn't mean to say it. It just came from Nightmare. It's from the old book.
Yeah.
So, like, another instance of her degeneration. And Elm just tells her just 2 more cards and she can walk free and clear. And he can rid Blunder of Orth Willow. And in my brain, like, is there a story there, like, that makes Elm particularly angry at Orth Willow? Like, besides the fact that he's, like, condemning children. Like, it just seems more personal than that.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's more that, like, the king is like, we're gonna kill Emery.
Okay.
But,
all right, then.
Yeah.
So they get to Spindle House, and there's a crowd there, along with the guards. And Jesper and Ravyn are there, met up with them, and Ravyn just wraps his arms around her and kisses her in front of the whole crowd. So they all are let into the courtyard, and it's a huge spectacle, and, like, her dad, stepmom, and half-sisters are announced and come out of the house. The king comes along with Hauth, Ione, and Ione's dad, aka Elspeth's uncle. And I guess Elspeth can tell that Ione is still using the maiden card. So they all head into Spindle House to start the celebration. So it's like a ball. So again, she didn't get anything remotely the same.
No, not at all.
So then we get the well card. So the well card says, be wary the blue, be wary the stone, be wary the shadows the water hath shown. Your enemies wait, the wolves stalk the gate. Be wary of shadows the water hath shown. What I don't get is, her dad has this card. Is she not concerned he would see that she wants to take it from him? Because it shows you your enemies, right?
Yeah. If he uses it, I don't know if he uses it.
Oh, okay.
Why wouldn't he use it, though?
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah. It's weird.
It is, yeah. But I think the degeneration of this one is that your friends will become your enemies. So is it like, how do you believe what it's showing you?
That's true.
I don't know. I don't understand it. And it's like, it's one of those cards that I don't think we ever see used. So I'm just like, I don't understand what it does.
Right. So, the 4 of them, Ravyn, Jesper, Elspeth, and Elm, head upstairs to search for the card. They need to split up. So Elm suggests that him and Elspeth go one way, and Ravyn and Jesper go a different way. And Jesper's not happy about it. And they start to argue, but Elspeth shuts it down and just is like, whatever, I'll go with Elm, it's not a big deal. And I don't really get why Elm wants her to go with him. Like, is it just because he doesn't want her with Ravyn? Like, I don't know, it just seems weird.
I think it's because he doesn't trust her, but I don't understand what he thinks she'll do.
Yeah. Anyway, so she knows the house the best, so she tells everyone where to look. And in my head, I'm just like, I don't understand how Ravyn and Jesper would be effective. Like, they can't see the aura of the card. So, like, it could be under a floorboard or in a false wall thing, and, like, they wouldn't know, but she would.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't understand why they're searching on their own. It seems like she should have been the one to just search the entire house. If she was found alone, it wouldn't be suspicious, because she could just say, I'm going to my room on the 6th floor.
Yeah.
Because we find out that that's where her room is.
It doesn't make any sense.
So, like, yeah, this whole plan is stupid. Because Ravyn and Jesper are not going to be able to see if the card is in a hiding place. And theoretically, they are picking the best places. Like, she's sending them to her dad's room.
Yeah, I guess.
Like,
it's the same as when they sent the Ivy brothers to check during market day. It's like, why are you doing this when you have the one person who can find it?
And who has an excuse to be in the house.
Yeah. It should have been her and Ravyn going to find it.
Yes.
Because they could have just made out.
Yeah.
And her dad would have been like, what poor chaperones you have.
Yeah. Yes. Or she could be like, I'm giving him a tour of my childhood home.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is the person that is courting me for us to potentially marry. Like, it just seems like it would make more sense for the two of them to be alone instead of her with Elm. Anyway.
100%.
Ugh, it's just a stupid plan. I hate it. So, her instructions to everybody about where to look actually exclude the 6th floor. And I'm like, can you imagine living in a house with 6 floors? That's a lot of floors.
Yeah. Like, and it comes up later. How long it takes her to walk up. I'm like, Jesus.
She gets winded.
Yeah.
I would love to live in a 6th floor house. I'd love to live like an old castle.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It'd be so fun. Anyway, so they're like, why aren't we going up to the 6th floor to look? And she's like, my dad doesn't go up there anymore because that's where my room is. Which is sad, but also, how do you know that?
Yeah.
And, like, in addition to that, is there nothing else up there? There's no other rooms? Is her mom's room up there, too? Like, it just...
Yeah, why was she on a floor by herself?
Yeah.
Up until the age of, what, like 8? Like, that doesn't...
It just seems, like, weird, like, why is her room isolated up there? Mm-hmm. So, I'm wondering if there must be something else to it other than her room being up there. Like, maybe her mom's dressing room or her mom's, like, you know, how fine ladies of the era had all these rooms to themselves, like a ladies' tea room or, like, something. God only knows.
Yeah.
Or remember Charlotte Collins had a parlor, and she said,
particular use.
we shan't be disturbed here. This parlor is for my own particular use. So, anyway, so I just feel like this is a terrible idea, and they need to make it better.
Yeah.
Because, of course, it doesn't work out. Anyway. So, Elspeth and Elm go searching the 3rd floor first, and they finish up that, and they're waiting for the stairs to clear before going up to the 4th floor, like, sort of unseen. When they are caught by Ballion, who is her dad's steward, who's, like, announced the family when they, you know.
Yeah.
So, he is an ass.
Of course.
And he treats her with disdain, of course. And he wonders, like, why is she up here? Because he's like, I came to get a book that, you know, her dad wants to show the king, which I wonder what book that was. I feel like they should pay attention to that.
Yeah.
But they don't. And so, like, he just then he notices that Elm is with her and is, like, really polite, and he's like, oh, your highness, like, because he's a prince, so he treats him very properly, and essentially doesn't, like, demand to know why they're, like, effectively trespassing or anything like that. Like, he would never do something like that to a prince. So just is like, oh, would you be joining us downstairs, your highness? And Elm just, like, dismisses him and says, yeah, it will in time, like, give us some time. So Ballion, like, bows to him and goes to leave, but then Elm is annoyed at how he treats Elspeth.
Yeah.
So I'm like, dude must have a crush on her or something. I don't get it.
Why are you acting like this?
Yeah. So then he uses his side card to force Ballion to bow to her too.
like, not a great use for the card. Like,
No.
I get it. But it's not.
But
great.
it's just making me more and more certain that he has a thing for her. And I know that nothing is going to come of it, and it's probably never going to be mentioned again. But I have. It's just it's laying out those crumbs.
Yeah.
It's a misdirect, but it is there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they head upstairs then after Ballion is dismissed, and Elspeth asks Elm why he's betraying his family and his country to essentially be a traitor.
Yeah.
And Elm just says it's for Emery, because, like, that's his family, and he'll do whatever he has to help his family. But she's just like, yeah, but the Rowans are your family, too.
Fair.
And he doesn't really answer. He just says, like, look at where we are. You're also betraying your family. And it is sort of a similar situation. Like, she wasn't raised in this house, like, after the age of 8.
Yeah.
And, like, Elm, I think, said, was it last week or the week before, that, like, he effectively grew up with the U's.
Yeah. I think it might have been last week, yeah.
Anyway, so there are parallels.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he just says, like, you're also betraying your family. But she's like, yeah, but my father didn't turn me in when he was supposed to. So now when he sees me, all he sees is a broken rule. So, like, that's why she thinks her dad, like, is aloof and distant.
Yeah. But it's also, like, I don't know. I'm like, your dad is still a dick.
Yeah. He is.
So.
Then Elm asks her that if somebody were to risk their title and their life for her, who saw all her secrets and did not fear her, wouldn't she risk everything for them? And she thinks about it, and she thinks of her aunt and how accepting her aunt is of her, even though she doesn't know all of her secrets.
Yeah.
And, like, thinks of the U's treating her kindly, and Ravyn looking at her, making her feel seen, and, like, she feels like they're meant for each other. So, like, she just says that she understands and that she would risk everything for people like that. And then he asks, like, and wouldn't you do anything to protect them? And it's sort of insinuating that he's protecting them by not trusting her.
Yeah.
And she says, like, she sort of just voices out loud, like, yes, she has secrets, but she would never betray them. And then she adds on, at least not knowingly. And I'm like, that's a terrible caveat to add on to
someone who already is like, you're not telling us everything, and then she's like, I wouldn't do it on purpose.
Yeah. And Elm just asks, like, what do you mean by that? And, like, even, it would be a great thing to just stick in, like, truth serums exist, or, like, the side card exists, or, you know, like, the nightmare card. You know what? It just seems like she could have said, well, magic is a thing here.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
But she doesn't. They just sort of keep exploring rooms. And obviously they don't find the card. So after an hour, they meet at the stairs, and none of them found it. So they agree to try tomorrow, since the party is going to keep going. So they're like, we'll take a break. But then Elspeth tells them, like, you guys should head down so the king can see you. All of you. And she was like, but nobody will really notice if I'm there or not. So I should go search.
Even though it's her sisters.
I know. She's like, I'll go check around tonight. I'll be able to see the aura anyway. And I can at least find out where it is so that we sort of have an idea of where to search. Which is actually a smart idea.
Yeah.
But then Ione sees them all and says, like, oh no, Elspeth, you have to come and sit with me for a little bit. So she invites them all to sit down. They sit. She offers them wine. And even before anything is said, Elspeth says that, oh, the wine tastes really bitter. And I'm like, okay, so it's truth wine, obviously.
Yeah.
And after a minute after they've all, like, finished their wine, Elm realizes that it was a trick and sees Ione's got, like, a look on her face. And he uses his card on her and says, like, what did you do? And she just says that she did what he bade her to do. So, obviously, there was some sort of trickery here.
Mm-hmm.
So then Hauth comes to sit down. And he admits that he made them all drink the truth wine, and then he takes a cup that was left, and he drinks it too. So they're all gonna be truthy.
Yeah.
And, like, he just sort of acts like it's a bit of name day fun. Like, and the way that they act, like, they sort of insinuate that they've done this before.
Yeah. And I think it came up the first week when they were talking about going, and then the two twins were like, except for last time, Jesper and Hauth got into a fight over using the chalice card, and it's like they've already had this fight before.
Yeah.
In the first week, so.
Yeah. Anyway, but so the way he acts, he's just sort of lighthearted and thinks it's a game.
Yeah.
So then we get the chalice card description. So it says, the chalice. Be wary the sea, be wary the cup. Be wary the food and the wine that you sup. Your stomach may sour, your tongue may twist dour. Be wary the food and the wine that you sup.
Which is like, that's not reasonable.
No.
You can't always be worried.
Worried about everything that you put in your mouth. Amazing. Yeah. So Elspeth realizes then that they've all played this game before. But Hauth doesn't really realize that everybody has more to hide now. Or maybe he does, and he's just acting like he doesn't. So Hauth offers to go first, so they take turns asking him questions. Jesper asks if he's jealous of Ravyn, and he tries to lie and say no, but he can't, so he says yes. Elm asks if he's trying to turn the Destriers against Ravyn, and he says yes. Ravyn asks if he plans on challenging him for command, and he says yes. Elspeth, I guess, doesn't really care about the Destriers and asks if he's used the scythe card on Ione more than once, because he's used it the one time today, and he says yes.
Not great.
Nope. Ione doesn't want to play, but Hauth just sort of forces her to with the scythe card. So her question is, has he slept with other women since their betrothal? And he just says yes. Without even, like, blinking. Like, yeah.
He doesn't even try to lie that when he's like, he would have just told her anyway, it seems like. It's like, great, you're a wonderful man.
Yeah. Then Ione offers to go next. So it's her turn to be asked questions. So Jesper asks if Hauth is treating her well. And the answer is hilarious and actually genius, because she says, as well as a brute like him knows how to.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm like, Elspeth needs to take notes.
I know. Fuck.
Yeah. Elm then asks if she is in love with him. And she says no. Like, with Hauth. She says no.
Yeah.
Ravyn asks what she wants out of her connection to the Rowans. And she says she wants to be powerful. And Elspeth is just thinking about how Ione used to be. Like, she used to be lighthearted and giddy, and, like, she was the light. And she's been altered into something, like, cold and unfeeling. And Elspeth's question is this what she really wants, to marry Hauth? And she responds that Elspeth is just like Ione's mother, and that her head is in the clouds. So, like, Ione's mother is her aunt. And, like, she doesn't see how it is to be a woman in this town without power. And so, like, she wants to have power. She wants to be fearless. Which I find odd, because it didn't seem like her character in the beginning at all.
Yeah.
So, like, I sort of wish that they had made that sort of an aspect of her character before she went stony.
Yeah, because it really wasn't.
Like, even if she had made some offhand comments about, like, being treated poorly as a woman, or, like, you know, oh yeah, I'm being forced to marry whoever, or I feel like a thing at my uncle's disposal. Just something to make us realize that she was unhappy.
But do you think that she only realized this recently, now that she's been able to detach from emotion?
No. Because I don't think her uncle would have forced her into this without her okay.
But she said that she had, like, when she talked to Elspeth in the beginning of the book, she said that she had hope that Hauth was going to be different. And he's not. So I just feel like.
Yeah, but
I
like.
don't know, unless she was lying to her in the beginning.
No, but I mean, like, by then she was already sort of. They were already in negotiations for her to marry him, right?
No, like when they were walking there, and she was like, "Oh, he wants me to come when he does the negotiations," and she's like, "Why?" And she's like, "You're not going to marry him, are you?" And she's like, "Well, maybe he's different. Maybe he'll change things."
Yeah, but I guess like I'm assuming that Ione knew why her dad wanted her to go to the negotiations, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, she already agreed with her dad / Elspeth's uncle what they wanted out of the negotiation.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, she already wanted the power and the fearlessness. Then she was willing to trade her, like, she was willing to marry Hauth regardless what he was like. She was willing to marry him in exchange for that power, right?
Yeah, I guess I'm just not as sold on that. Because when they talked about it, she said that she thought that he could be different, and that, like, that's, like, what her hope was, and hope is all that she has, or some bullshit. And then Elspeth was like, "Why are you hoping?" But it didn't seem like, and it's kind of what you were saying, it didn't seem like she wanted the power in the beginning. And then last week, was it, she started telling Elspeth to be careful of powerful men. And it's like, this is literally the same conversation that Elspeth had with you in the beginning. So it's like, I don't really understand her character.
Yeah. Yeah.
Either she lied in the beginning, she's lying now. Like, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. It's weird. Anyway, so she just says, like, she wants to have power. She wants to be fearless. And she said Elspeth has just been so preoccupied with trying to just be herself and fulfill who she is. But Ione always knew she wanted to be more. This is still her answer to Elspeth.
Yeah.
And she says, if it takes a cold heart to get there, so be it. So it just made me feel like she was willing to give up a lot for this exchange. Yeah.
Which just doesn't seem within the character that, like...
Yeah.
And I get we're in Elspeth's head, so it's like, is there some character bias there, maybe?
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. So, Elspeth sort of responds that she was like, you don't want to be anything more than you are. Like, you just want to be yourself. And Elspeth responds that, like, she did want to be more. She wanted to be more like Ione. And Ione's like, well, that doesn't matter anymore. She just says, like, what matters now is that both of us are sheep in a wolf's den. She said, or is it the other way around? Indicating that maybe they're the wolves in a sheep's den. And Nightmare's like, I like this girl.
Yeah, Nightmare's like, she's fucking right.
Yeah. So Elspeth wants to leave after this. She's like, I don't like this. I want to go. But Nightmare tells her, like, she can't. She has to stay and play. And just pretend. Keep pretending. So it's Elm's turn. And she sees that Ravyn has his Nightmare card and is focused on Elm. And I'm like, so is he using it to control what he has to say? Like, what is he doing?
Yeah.
So Jesper asks him who does he think the most talented card user is? And he's like, well, obviously it's me. Ione asks why he doesn't live at Stone with his family. And he just says he hates it there. He would burn it all down if he could. Which doesn't surprise anybody except for Ione. Like, does surprise her.
Yeah.
Ravyn asks Elm if he trusts him. And he says, of course, with my life, which is an interesting question to ask. Elspeth asks if it pains him to use the scythe card for too long. And he says, yes, it's like glass cutting his head. Hauth then asks if he thinks he would be a better king than him. And he says, yes. But Hauth already knew that. So, like, all Elm's questions were kind of like throwaway questions.
Yeah.
So, like, you know that's not really the goal.
Does Hauth just not realize that they're all in on it? Because, like, why isn't he is he this dumb? Why isn't he using any of these questions for figuring shit out?
Yeah, I don't know.
He's not very bright.
No, well, yeah. So Ravyn offers to go next, and Hauth just brings up that, like, he'll say whatever he wants, because the chalice cup doesn't do anything for him. But, like, for some reason, they all still do it.
Yeah.
So Ione starts and asks him if he truly cares for Elspeth, and he says yes, from the moment he met her, maybe the second moment. Because the first moment was on the highway, on the forest road.
Yeah.
Hauth then asks what he does, and he says, what do you do when you're not with the Destriers? Where do you go? But that's 2 questions, and Elm reminds Hauth, like, you can't ask 2 questions, you can only ask 1 question. And Hauth's like, yeah, but I could ask 100 questions and still not get the truth. Because, again, Ravyn doesn't need, like, the card doesn't affect him.
Yeah.
He responds that he's been busy doing the king's bidding. What else would he be doing?
So a lie.
Yeah. Jesper asks him if he wishes he hadn't become a Destrier and had a normal life. And then he says only when he doesn't have his sister steering him in the right direction. Which is cute.
It's cute, but it's also like, so do you?
Yeah.
What's the answer,
the answer, yeah. Elm asks if he thinks if Elm is better looking than him. And he says, well, yeah.
Fair.
Elspeth then asks if he's still pretending.
No.
And he responds that he never was.
Aww.
And he kisses her. So cute. He was courting her all along.
Even though she eavesdropped on him and he was like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me.
It was all a lie. Secretly in his head, he was like, fist pumping. Yeah. Then it's Elspeth's turn. And, like, we're just going to skip Jesper. She doesn't get a turn.
Oh, yeah.
I guess she doesn't need one. And Hauth just... Yeah. Hauth just says, like, he's been waiting for this. And, like...
So crazy. He's so icky.
This is, like, the biggest downhill disaster. Like, she didn't even need to say anything. And she's, like... Ugh, I hate it. So... Nightmare's just coaching her and tells her that the truth must be framed and caught. And that the question is just as important as the answer. So, like, really listen to what the question is. And you can sort of talk around it, essentially.
Yeah. Smart.
So, Ione asks the first question. And asks if she's in love. And she wants to hit her cousin. Because this is really embarrassing. So, she asks Nightmare for help. She's like, can you please get rid of this? I don't want to tell the truth. But he says that he cannot help her because the chalice card affects the blood.
But are you in love? It's not are you in love with
Ravyn. It just says, are you in love?
Yes, I love you as a sister.
I love my aunt. I love my mom.
Those are the only 2 people. Yeah, her mom. Good one. Like, so many options.
I know. She's a dummy. I don't know what Ravyn sees in her. She's an idiot.
Amazing.
I don't. Like, I'm sorry. I'm not gonna lie. I don't find her a very good character. I don't. All she does is complain to Nightmare that Nightmare is there, then ask him for help. Like, what personality has she shown to anyone else? Not a lot. Fair. I don't know what Ravyn sees in her. I really don't. Anyway, so he just says he can't help her unless she wants him to rip the card away from the prince and break his fingers.
Which,
Who knows?
You may as well.
Yeah. So she thinks that, like, the chalice's magic is strange because she can feel it trapped in her body, but she doesn't smell salt, and she can't feel it in her veins. So, like, she can feel that it's there, but it's not normal. It's not how normal magic works. So she tries to answer and lie, and she coughs. So now we know how not to answer with a lie. So Jesper then tries to stick up for her and say that she doesn't have to answer. But Hauth is like, we all had a turn, so now she does too. And, like, it's just annoying. Like, this whole thing. They're all protecting her from the beginning. And it's like, just say that you're in love with him. It's not the end of the world. You guys are courting, like, according to the outside world. So, like, who the fuck cares? Like, you've had sex. You've given him your V card. You helped him find a card. Now you've given him another one. So, like, just tell him.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Ravyn then holds her hand and tries to tell her she doesn't have to. But she responds yes to the question. Then Hauth is like, oh, my turn. What happened to your arm? And she panics. And this is what I mean. She's fucking useless. This is the second question, and she goes, like, catatonic.
Yeah.
Because then Ione tries to tell him. She was like, I told you what happened, because Ione tried to hide it for her. Mm-hmm. And says, like, oh, we were riding. But Hauth silences her. And
in a dick way,
In a dick way, of course. Then Elm tries to stick up for Ione, causing Hauth and Elm to start arguing. And Nightmare is telling her to calm down. He's like, the truth will come out. You might as well let it out. And she's like, no. Then Ravyn is saying, like, let me help you. And she's like, no. And he's like, come on, let me. And then he, like, goes into her head. And he's trying to coach her through it. He's like, choose your words carefully. Like, think about the question. He asked what happened, not how it happened. So she could just say, what happened? My wrist is broken.
Yeah.
That's literally all she has to say. And that's his one question. He can't ask her anymore.
Yeah. Which doesn't actually make any sense, because they all still have the truth potion in them. So he should...
I know, but it's part of the game.
It's a game, yeah. But yeah, I'm like, I get that she's all flustered now because he's in her head, but I'm like...
She makes it a bajillion times worse.
Yeah.
Because then she's... Ugh. Ugh. I just hate it. I hate it. She's useless. She is fucking useless. So... she's shouting at Ravyn in her head to get out of her head because she's worried he's going to see Nightmare. But she is panicking. So then Nightmare decides he's going to take it upon himself to help. So then Nightmare is yelling at Ravyn to get out. And then,
which is great.
Yeah. So then that shocks Ravyn enough that he gets out of her head and then he falls out of his chair.
That's not obvious in any way.
No. So, like, everyone's like, oh, the game is over. But Hauth is like, sit back down. And then he grabs Elspeth's broken wrist and squeezes it and encourages her to tell the truth. And then Jesper pushes his hand away from her. And then they start fighting. And then while he's distracted fighting with Jesper, Ione taps the chalice card, releasing all of them from the truth serum. So then Ravyn gets up and tells Hauth that this was an ambush, not a game, and tells him that they're leaving. So, like, if they couldn't make it any more obvious that that question is a trigger, and that obviously they have something to hide. And it was just dumb.
Yeah.
Anyway, they get up to go, but then Elspeth, like, drops to the ground and coughs up a ton of blood. And she realizes that she tried to beat the chalice and lied too much, or didn't tell the truth quickly enough. And the opposite of truth serum is poison. So she's been poisoned.
So that's great. So this chapter actually starts with a thing about the nightmare card.
I wonder why.
So it says, be wary the dark, be wary the fright, be wary the voice that comes in the night. It twists and it calls through shadowy halls. Be wary the voice that comes in the night.
Yikes.
So, spooky.
Yes.
So Elspeth wakes up now and she has a headache, which you're like, fair. I actually thought you were supposed to die because you last said it was poison. And she's in her childhood bedroom, and she thinks like it hasn't actually changed since she left. And Ravyn is actually sleeping in a chair nearby because he cares about her.
He cares about her so much.
He does. It's sweet. But she's just like, shit, what does he think of me now that he heard the nightmare in my head? There's a knock on the door, and she just pretends to be asleep, and Elm walks in and asks how she is. And we hear that, like, Philip was here to heal her, and she's not throwing up blood anymore, so we assume that she's, like, gonna be okay. Ideal! Elm says he could kill Hauth, and Ravyn says he must suspect them, and that they need to be more careful. But again, if he suspected them all, wouldn't he have asked the other ones better questions?
But, like...
I'm disappointed in Hauth.
But, like, maybe he does suspect them, but, like, doesn't want to let in on suspecting them? I don't know.
Yeah, could be.
He's either too dumb or not dumb enough.
Yeah. Well, he's not very smart later. Ravyn then tells Elm, and Elspeth is still pretending to be asleep, but Ravyn tells Elm that he used the nightmare card on her last night. And Elm's like, yeah, like you did to me, to talk me through how to answer, so that I was telling the truth, but also hiding things.
Yeah.
Things.
Although, I'm trying to remember, like, what question even...
he needed help for?
Yeah, because, like...
There wasn't...
No, like, he was truthful, but also... Like, he did say some questionable things. Like, he said he hates his home and wants to burn it down. Like, that...
And that he would be a better king.
So, like, what did he help with?
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe they were hoping... Like, maybe he was in there to be like, in case it's a worse question. Like, I don't know.
Maybe.
It really didn't seem that bad. And he answered truthfully, so it's like... But... I guess that's why Ravyn was using the nightmare card. But Elm says it was an extenuating circumstance, and Ravyn says he doubts she'll see it that way. And I'm like, did no one else see him fall out of the chair? Like, shouldn't everybody be asking why he fell out of a chair? But then Ravyn says being in her head wasn't like anything he's seen before. It was like being in seawater, and her voice was far away. And he just says he doesn't know what happened, and that he must be losing his mind. Which, she could just gaslight him, and it would be so funny. But Elspeth is obviously listening to all this, and the nightmare asks if she's going to let him suffer like this, and she asks what he'll think of her. And basically, she's like, he matters to her. And the nightmare tells her not to lie to him then, which is fair. So she opens her eyes and tells them that she feels terrible, and Elm says she spit up a lake of blood, but Philip was able to get an antidote into her, but she'll still be weak for a while, which is unfortunate. So she then immediately tells Ravyn that she asked him not to use the nightmare card on her. And
as if that's what matters right now.
I know, but she's just thinking about him. But
being in her head?
Yeah, and him hearing the nightmare. And he just immediately says he's sorry. But then he asks what the hell happened. And he says, what was that voice? And Elma's just there like, what are you talking about? What voice do you mean? But Raven's just like, there was a voice inside of her head that told him to get out. And Elspeth starts to cry, and Ravyn says he'll help her no matter what. And she says that he can't, but then she says that she can show him. So he taps the nightmare card 3 times, and she tells the nightmare to be kind to him, which is kind of sweet. And the nightmare says to both of them, like in her head, that at least this time he was invited. Which I love. I love how sassy he is. He's my favorite. And then Ravyn asks who the other person in her head is, and she nods to the card, and he's like, this thing is in your head? Because it's like a monster on it with claws and yellow eyes and blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
And then he asks the nightmare who he is, and the nightmare answers the shepherd of the shadow, the phantom of the fright, the demon in the daydream, the nightmare in the night. And you're like, just tell him who you are, man.
Yeah.
Wasn't that your deal? But he asks why he's in Elspeth's head, and the memory of her touching the card kind of pops up, and it just, like, I'm not sure what he can get from it, but it just shows her touching the card and then passing out. And he's like, what does that mean? So she explains that when she touched a card, she absorbed whatever the Shepherd King bartered for it.
Yeah. Like, she's finally telling him the GD truth.
Yeah. And for this card, he bartered his soul. And, like, tiny spoiler for the next book, they kind of get into it a tiny, tiny, tiny bit. But, like, if she touched any other card, the shit that she could have gotten would be so much weirder, and I don't know how it would have manifested.
Yeah.
And they do mention it in the next book, so, like, I'll leave that just as a thought to ponder.
Yeah, because, it's weird, because I wasn't thinking of it in that way, but now I am, of, like, in my brain, if she touched the card, she would get its power, but she's not. Like, that's not what she gets. Bargained. Yeah, so, like, oh, God, I wish I had the book on me. I could look, because doesn't it say in the beginning, like, what he bartered?
Yeah. For one of them, he bartered his hair.
Ew.
And for one, remember the bones of his beloved or something? The old bones of his wife?
Right.
So, like, how would that manifest?
I don't know. Okay. I'm trying to look and see what he actually bartered. But it's gonna take a long time. In the end, sorry, this is taking too long, but it's fine.
Well, I guess if she touched the Twin Alders card. Oh no, that wasn't the Twin Alders. It was for the information that he bartered the Twin Alders. Never mind. I don't know anything. Anyway, I just remember those two. The old bones and the hair.
Yeah. Yeah, but I wonder, yeah.
Well,
anyway.
He gave away his magic for one of the cards, too. I think that was the Twin Alders. He gave away his ability to use the cards.
Oh.
Anyway, so Ravyn then says if she absorbed his soul, then the Shepherd King is inside of her head. And the nightmare just laughs because, exactly that. And it makes Ravyn flinch, but Elspeth just doesn't flinch at all to it, which is just kind of like showing that she's had this thing in her head for more than half of her life.
Yep.
And Elm is just, like, hearing one side of the conversation. He's just like, what the fuck is going on?
Oh, Elm.
I kind of love him in this moment, because he's like, I'm so confused. And Ravyn asks if she can really see cards, and she says no, but he can. I'm like, but she still can. Even though it's him that sees them, she can still see them.
Yeah.
It's not... I don't... Anyway. And then Elm says, so the creature is the one telling them where the card is. And she says, he doesn't speak for me. And then she says, or not often. Which is just funny. And Elm says, so he definitely helps you because of your strength, and then the claws, and you like clawing the shit out of Hauth and Linden.
Yeah.
And she says he doesn't give her his strength unless she asks for it. And that makes Elm laugh. And he says, well, at least he's ethical, which I kind of love. And then he asks if the yellow eyes are his. And Ravyn just asks Elm to leave. And he's like, what the fuck? He's like, this confirms that she's been lying to us this whole time.
Yeah.
But Ravyn, like, convinces him to go. And then Ravyn asks why she didn't tell him. And she says, my secrets are deep, but long have I kept them, and long will they keep. You know.
So you know, she's really going full Shepherd King.
Yeah. With the rhymey rhymes.
Yeah.
And also, like, she didn't even tell her family that she had any magic. So, like, the fact that she told him at all is kind of like...
I know. Elm, I'll be honest, is sort of pissing me off with that. Like... But, like, he is, though, because he's judging her for not telling strangers. And, yeah, I know. Her and Ravyn are, like...
The prince.
In love.
The prince of the king that is killing her kin.
Yeah.
Kin's not the right word, but I don't...
You know, other people like her.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just annoying that he's so self-righteous. As if he has no secrets. If that makes sense.
It does make sense. You might appreciate him in book 2.
Might I?
You might. No more words.
Oh. Does he fall in love with her?
I'm not telling you anything.
Come on, man.
Not a thing. Especially on this mic. Maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow night I'll tell you.
Okay. Thank you.
So the nightmare then, because Ravyn's still inside of her head, and the nightmare says that Ravyn saw the yellow eyes dozens of times, just like everyone else did. Like, he knew something was going on. So, like, he can say, why did you keep secrets? But he knew she was keeping a secret.
Yeah.
But then he says it wasn't his place to demand answers, and then he asks if the Shepherd King has been in her head for 11 years, and she says he's trapped just like she is, and that he's getting stronger, and that is her degeneration. Which is good to know. And Ravyn asks if he's hurt her, and the nightmare hisses, and he said that he's protected her. And Ravyn asks why. He doesn't really say why, but he's just like, he is very protective of her. Which is
we need to know.
Yeah. But then Ravyn asks why he's getting stronger. And he says that his soul was stuck here after the Rowan King killed him, and he waited for hundreds of years, consumed by fury and salt. And then Elspeth touched the card. So he says he protected her from a world that would kill her. She was already clever and good, so he taught her to be wary, and he gave her his gifts and strength. But he says nothing comes for free, especially not magic. And Ravyn asks what happens when he becomes too strong for her mind. And the nightmare just, like, clicks his teeth, which is a super common thing that he does, that Elspeth is used to, but Ravyn is not. And then Elspeth tells Ravyn it was his castle's ruins near Castle U. So, like, Emery was right. It was the Shepherd King's castle ruins. And that he's actually buried in that room with the one window.
Which they're not, like, surprised about at all, which I really thought they would be.
Yeah. Yeah. But I guess Emery's been, like, spouting it forever. I don't know. Maybe he's just like, yeah, who cares? There's somebody in your head.
Could be.
So Jesper knocks on the door then, and tells Ravyn that the king is calling them and he has to go. And he's like, I can't leave. And she's like, the king, like, you can't say no to the king.
Yeah.
So he says that they'll talk when he returns and tells her to rest. And she thinks, like, she can't rest. And she goes to get up and she's super dizzy and, like, Ravyn is gone. But then her father shows up and she can tell that he has the well card with him, which is, like...
This is the oddest...
Super ironic.
The oddest thing.
I kind of love it, though, because... So, her mother's father gave the well card as her, like, dowry when her mother married her father. So, he's, like... Basically, yeah. He brings the card. And he asks if she's feeling better and says that he heard she was using a chalice, and she says Prince Hauth was, and she was just there. And he tells her to be wary of him. He's a... And then he stops, and she says, a horrid man. And he says he's his father's son. And I'm like, you fucking worked for his father for years. Don't come in here and, like, spout that he's shitty. You are just as shitty. And then
well, and like
about...
just what he like hosting this gigantic ball for his daughters after leaving one daughter like in the wait. You know what I mean? Like just like leaves her in the dumps and is like, "What? You're sick? I don't care for you anymore."
And what are they like? Turning 13 or something? Like they're super young, maybe 12. I don't remember.
Yeah,
they drink, but they're young as shit. So yeah, he asks her about Ravyn and says that she looks to be enjoying the courtship.
That's one way of putting it.
We're like, yeah, because there's no chaperones, sir. And it's
sir.
Also because they had sex last night.
Sir.
It wasn't last night, but
sir, the chaperones.
The chaperones, sir. Where are the chaperones? And then the nightmare says in her head that she was enjoying it until Ravyn realized that there was a king in her mind, and she's just like, "Shut up."
Way to ruin it.
Yeah. But she tells her father that she likes Ravyn very much, and then he pulls out the well card, and he puts it on her bed, and he says that her mother gifted him the card when they wed, and her father gave it to her, but she said that she had no use of it. Only a man would need a card to keep track of his enemies. Which, like, I'm like, I don't know, man. Is this
real life?
Where's the feminism in this? Women are allowed to have enemies. Anyway. But he basically says that he wants her to have it, and she doesn't have to give it to Ravyn if she doesn't want to. And he says if he could go back and do things differently, he would. And you're just like, cool, but you didn't, so... You gave her a card, you were still a piece of shit.
Yeah, like you literally abandoned her when she needed you probably the most, so... Exactly. Congrats, dude, on being the worst dad. Yeah. Well, maybe not the worst dad, but...
Well, yeah, probably.
Not a great...
You could have turned her in.
Not a great dad. I was thinking the king is probably a worse dad, but that's fine.
Yeah, that's true. But the king didn't even kill his nephews when he found out that they had...
No, this is sort of what I don't understand. Now, I guess it's because they were like, she has no magic, so she wouldn't be useful. Maybe that's, like... Because in my head, I'm, like, thinking, you know, you're right, he didn't kill his own kids, or his nieces and his nephews when he found out. But it's because they had magic that suited him.
Emery's isn't super useful.
I mean...
It could be, but then it also makes him seem a bit crazy.
I mean, he is.
Yeah.
I can't believe you're judging him on that. On him.
I'm not. I'm just saying it's hard to hide. She immediately was like, I think there's some magic there. Met him for like 5 seconds and was like, I think he might be magic. It's like, how did nobody else realize that?
That's true, too.
But it doesn't matter. He's the nephew of the king. What are they going to do? Kill him? So she just says thank you to her dad because she's just like, I don't give a fuck about what you're saying. This is like, we were looking for the well card. You're giving it to me. This is perfect. This is
like, do you think?
Just get out.
Because like it can help you see your enemies. So do you think he used the well card and was like, "What? My daughter's trying to take my card. I'll just give it to her to avoid." Like, I don't know. I'm wondering if he was like if he was trying to like set her up or something.
Yeah. Well, he could have seen that she was trying to steal it and been like, I don't want her to steal it because she could be killed for that. So, like, I'll just give it to her.
Yeah.
And, like, he's not a destrier anymore. So, like, his enemies are lesser than they were. So maybe he's just like, it's time.
But, like, was that his only card? Because, like, isn't having the cards like a currency? So he just gave her that card. And now he doesn't have one? Like,
I don't know. Because, like, he obviously had a black horse when he was a destrier, but now he doesn't because he's not anymore because he was the captain.
Yeah.
But you'd think that, like, if you were the captain of the king's guards, he would give you, like, a different card to be like, thank you for your service or something.
But
like,
maybe that was the well card. No, we just learned that that's not the well card.
Yeah. I don't know. I hope so. Well, also, fuck him. So, yeah. Her dad leaves, and she gets dressed, and she goes downstairs, and the destriers are, like, just leaving, and Ravyn sees her and comes over to her, and she's just like, hey, my dad gave me the well card. Just gave it to me.
It's really awkward, but...
Yeah.
Everything we worked for.
Yeah. He knows she can't touch it, so he says that he'll send Philip up to check on her and to grab the card.
Oh yeah, that must be weird too for her to be like, just lay it on the table and like not
take it. Yeah. Yeah. It's weird.
This is weird. Now I really want to know, like, what the what he bartered.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Because, like, what if her dad was like, take it, and she couldn't get around, like, taking it from his hand, and then, like, wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So, yeah, Philip's gonna come get it and bring it to Castle U. Elspeth tells Ravyn that she's sorry, and she didn't think that he'd trust her, and she needed him to trust her, and he says that she doesn't owe him an explanation, and he's the one who broke his word by going into her head with the nightmare card. And she says that she would have told him sooner, but she didn't know how. And he says that he knows. And he then says he'll be back tonight and kisses her head. And she says, be safe. And then she thinks if she knew those... Sorry. Good. She thinks if she knew those would be the last words she'd say out loud, she might have chosen them differently. Out loud to him. So you're like, oh,
I know.
Oh, good.
This is
You're
not...
You're forewarning me of how shitty this is going to be. Thanks, book.
Yeah, I didn't... Yeah, when I read that, I was like, oh, no.
Yeah.
I was really not pleased.
So we get another chapter header here. And it's, to be wary is to be keen. Keen of those who may use magic for wrong. To be clever is to be wise. Wise not to use the cards too often. To be good is to be reverent. Reverent of balance, of the salt in the air, of the spirit of the wood. Be wary, be clever, be good.
That's where it came from.
Super helpful at this moment.
Yeah.
So Philip comes and he gets the well card. And we're like, yay.
And then he just leaves.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, peace.
It's very nonchalant. I thought there was going to be an issue with him getting it, but it's just super easy. He gets it. We're all good.
Yep. We're done.
Because you're like, something's going to happen. Obviously, the end of that chapter, obviously something's going to happen. So she's hanging out in the parlor, but she's weak and tired because she walked down all the stairs to get here. And her uncle comes in and he asks if she's feeling better. But she notices that, like, he just doesn't listen to her answer. And he just says that her aunt is looking for her. And she's surprised that her aunt is here because she didn't see her. But he says that her aunt is waiting in her room on the 6th floor. So she's walking up the stairs and literally has to rest on the way because of how
frail and weak she is from poison.
From throwing up a river of blood.
Ugh.
And she sees him, like, shiver, and she asks him if everything is all right, and he says that he's cold and Opal is waiting. And the nightmare just says he's hiding something. Like, maybe we should think more on that. Yeah. But no. So they get to her room, and her aunt isn't there, but Hauth is.
What a shock.
Right? And the nightmare yells at her to run, but her uncle steps behind her and forces her into the room. And Hauth just says that he brought her here to talk. And she asks if he used his scythe card on her uncle, but he just says he didn't have to.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, this was the foreshadowing we got about her uncle being a POS.
Did we get that?
Kind of, because remember she was like, I don't recognize him anymore. I don't think I know him anymore. Like, she said it a few times.
All right.
But it's still like, oh, I didn't think he'd be this batshit.
Yeah.
Hauth then says he wants the truth, and Ravyn's gone, so he has her all to himself. And I'm like, he just sounds so gross. Mm-hmm. And I know we talk about it every book. I can't not talk about it, but I don't need every villain to be rapey.
Although he doesn't really make a pass at her or anything.
He doesn't, no. But he does, like, he's very, like, when he wanted her because Ravyn liked her, because he wants to, like, it's just like, ugh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's slightly icky.
It is, yeah. Like, he's not full-blown rapey, but he's just kind of icky. You know.
I do know.
Like you say about people. So, Hauth basically says that, like, he wants to know what happened to her arm and tells her uncle to leave and make sure that no one comes up. And Elspeth tells her...
She's just causing more trouble than it's worth.
Yeah. Elspeth asks her uncle not to leave, but he just, like, closes the door in her face and locks her in. Good, you're great.
Yeah.
She screams out for help, but
not a nice man.
Hauth puts his hand over her mouth, and he says that he wants to talk, and no one needs to get hurt. And she turns around and claws his face and, like, opens his scabs. Then he pulls out the scythe card and tells her to hold still and not to fight it. And she just thinks, like, it's not real. The scythe magic is a storm to make her cower. And she and the nightmare do not cower. And because of his magic, she's able to, like, break through the control of it. Mm-hmm. Of the scythe card. And she attacks, and she hits his hand that Ravyn broke. And hits him in the face. And he starts using his black horse card. And he grabs her injured arm behind her back and pushes her into a chair and then, like, ties her up. Okay? And then
it's getting kinky.
Yeah. And then he says he knows that it was her in the woods, and this time he'll break her neck.
Yikes.
And she just asks what he wants. And he tells her that he actually suspected it was her the next day. And we're like, of course he did, because he's not dumb as rocks.
But see, I blame Elm for this, because Elm assumed he was as dumb as rocks.
I know, yeah.
Elm was like, he's not going to put 2 and 2 together, not realizing he did put, actually, not even 2 and 2. He put 1 and 1 together. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 100%.
Dumb.
Yeah. He also says that he thought that she had a weapon, because he talked about, like, her having, like, claws or something, or knives in her gloves. But now he just asks if she's infected. And he says that's why Ravyn protected her. And her uncle actually already confirmed that she was infected. Okay, great. So he's just really out there telling all the family secrets.
Yeah, what an ass.
Right? And he does say that her uncle didn't want to, but he wanted to keep his status and their deal, I guess, for Hauth to marry his daughter more than he cared about Elspeth. Like, great. So nice.
Her poor life. Like, she...
I know.
I know we say it with a lot of our main characters, but, like, man, her life is trash.
Tragic. Tragic trash.
Yeah.
She asks him what he wants, and he says he wants her help with Ravyn. And he says Ravyn, Elm, and Jesper are hiding things, and she realizes she's going to be a trap for Ravyn. But she tells him Ravyn won't tell him anything, and he says he's seen the way that Ravyn looks at her, and if Ravyn doesn't want his father to know about her infection, he'll step down, and maybe Hauth will let them all live. I'm sure that's how it's going to go. So she spits in his face, and he punches her in the face.
Like, I understand you're mad, but, like, this feels like you are in a position of being tied up.
Well, she is tied up, yeah.
And you're, like, just antagonizing the person that's like, maybe I'll let you live. Like, wouldn't you just be like, okay, and then try and figure your shit out later instead of just making him more angry?
Yeah. No.
Apparently, again, reinforcing my argument that she is fucking useless.
She's the one that's dumb as rocks.
But, like, realistically, though, apart from the interest of having Nightmare in her head, can you tell me, in this book, what makes her interesting? Can you name any character traits?
Not really.
See?
Yeah.
Like, she does not seem like a well-developed character. Her interest comes from having Nightmare in her head.
And my love for him.
Are you in love with him?
I love Nightmare. He's my favorite.
Do we need to plan the wedding?
Maybe.
All right. All right. I shall.
Weird wedding, but I'm here for it. So yeah, he punches her and she screams out. And she basically says, help, it can't end like this, to the Nightmare. And he says that he doesn't know what will happen because her degeneration is almost at an end. And she looks out the window and whispers a goodbye that no one will hear. And she says she's asking for his help and she understands the price. We're like, of course. So darkness covers her vision and there's a knock at the door. And the Nightmare says that she needs to free her hands, and she tries, and she hears someone unlocking the door, and the Nightmare tells her to focus and sends, like, his magic down her arm, and, like, her skin just starts to tear as she, like, rips them out of the binds, and I'm like, this is not great. But she just, like, starts to bleed, but she's free, and then Orith Willow walks in and says it's a pleasure to finally meet her.
Yikes.
So then we have another chapter about the spirit. It says the spirit has no forgiveness, no pardon to lend. She calls out our name, neither kin, foe, nor friend. She watches the mist like a shepherded sheep, and pays those she snares with the great final sleep. So by killing them. So she's still, like, sitting in the chair, but she's got her arms free. And Orith and Hauth are just speaking. And she tells the Nightmare that, like, I guess Ravyn and Jesper and Elm will be back from the patrol soon. So they're almost out of time. And Orith is able to just, like, confirm her infection because there's literally blood all over the room from their struggle. So he doesn't even need to cut her.
What a dummy.
Yeah. They, like, talk amongst themselves for a bit about like Ravyn and Jesper's and Elm's treason and like what they're gonna do. And she's crying and she's like, we're screwed. Even if Ravyn doesn't admit to stealing cards, like he hid her infection so they can kill him for that. And the nightmare says that he doesn't need to die and asks if she trusts him. And she asks if she has a choice. And he says that she always does. I just love him.
I know.
This is really reminding me of like Shadow and Bone, where like you fall in love with like the wrong person because they're the Darkling or they're the Nightmare.
Is it the wrong person?
I don't know.
Ugh.
So she hears the gates open and she knows that the Destriers are coming back. And Hauth tells Orith to like turn off the lantern. I know that's not the right word.
Douse it?
Put it out. Douse, yeah. The lantern. And stay close to her. And they need to make it clear to Ravyn that if he tries to fight, they'll kill her.
Yikes.
And Orith asks if they should alert the Destriers. But Hauth says Ravyn will think of lies to get them out of this. So they decide not to. And I'm like, that makes sense. Because, like, you alert the Destriers. Like, he's immediately going to know. He's the captain.
Yeah.
She can see, like, all the cards in the courtyard. So, like, all the Black Horse cards. And then she can see Ravyn's Nightmare card. And the Nightmare in her head says it's time. And she screams, basically like a dying animal, and kicks Orith to the floor. And Hauth goes to stop her, but she attacks him. And he hits the floor. And she goes for the door. But Hauth is up, and he punches her in the stomach and tells Orith to help him hold her against a wall. And the Nightmare just tells her to get up. And Orith says her veins are getting darker and asks what her magic is. And says the king will not be pleased if she's killed before she's presented. Because obviously, they don't know what her magic is. She could be useful.
God.
And then he recognizes her eyes from helping the boy escape on Market Day, and Hauth realizes that she attacked Linden. And you're like, obviously, your attacks were the same. You should have known this before now.
I know.
But he says that he's going to catch the boy, and he'll watch him burn, because of course he does. He's a villain. And then she's on top of Hauth and punching him in the face, and she splits an eyelid. And he pushes her off and then uses his side card. But she says it can't help him against her. And what is he without it? And then Orith tries to hit her, but she dodges, and he asks what her magic is. And Hauth says that Tern, her uncle, said she had none. They're obviously wrong. But she gets to the door, but then she feels salt water fill her eyes and nose. And Ravyn asks if she's there. So he's using the Nightmare card on her again, even though, you know, probably not the best bet. But it distracts her, basically.
Yeah.
And Orith wraps his claw around her neck. And he says that Hauth's father will want to know right away and to call the Destriers. So, like, she can't really answer Ravyn at this moment.
Poor dear.
Yeah. Hauth is just like, she's a waif. Why can't you hold her still? And then he grabs her hair and slams her head into like a concrete wall.
Yeah.
And Orith, a physician, says that he cracked her head. Like, can you live through that? But Hauth just says she'll live. And I'm like, are you sure? Because that doesn't sound like something you lived through.
I'm assuming he means just like cracked it open, right?
I guess. I don't know. It can't have felt good.
No.
And she's like kind of out of it. And like Hauth slaps her in the face. But she's super far away. And she can like... She's kind of having like one of those moments where you like see back on your life. So she sees her aunt crouched over her after she ran and like... After she ran in the first chapter, I think it was, like the very beginning of the book, when she smacked her head open that time. And she sees wild, sweet Ione walking with her, and then she sees her father with a bouquet of taro, and then she sees yellow in her eyes looking back at her. And then she sees Ravyn looking at her with concern and wonder. And she tells him not to come. And she says Hauth and Orith have her, and they're waiting for him. So, like, she's back in the present, talking to him in her mind. And he asks where she is, and the nightmare says they'll see him hang, and he cannot save her. And she tells him to find the twin alder and to save Emery. And then Hauth tells her to get up, and the nightmare tells her to get up too. And she says she can't this time. And she says it was going to happen anyway, and the nightmare is so strong, and she's tired. And the nightmare says, let me help you. And she sinks into blackness. And she sees people she doesn't know with yellow eyes. And then she sees a man run through the mist away from the burning castle with children following him into the chamber. And a boy with gray eyes faces down a man with a scythe card and a rowan tree on his cloak. So it's a memory that's not hers.
Of course it's not. Is this really the time?
And then she sees hundreds of children with dark veins thrown into an inferno.
Which is so dark. I'm sorry. Like,
so dark.
This is...
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah. It gives me the real heebie-jeebies.
Yeah. And she sees the mist reaching further, and centuries of rage boils in her. And she loses herself to the dark, and she becomes the creature. And the last thing she sees is a girl with dark eyes who asks if he has a name. And he says they called him a king once. And she asks what to call him. And he says, I'm the wind in the trees, the shadow and fright, the echo in the leaves, and the nightmare in the night. So I guess that's when she decided to call him the nightmare.
So that's when they first met. It was when she was, actually a small girl.
Yeah. She actually, snaps back, and she hears Ravyn say that they're on the stairs. And Hauth asks Orith what's wrong with her eyes, because they're yellow. And...
You asked for it, buddy.
Get ready.
What do they call it when you, in wrestling or boxing, you bring the heat?
Bring the heat. Yeah.
She's ready to bring the heat.
Mm-hmm. So it's a bit... I'm going to refer to her in the nightmare in the third person a bit now, because...
Don't we always refer to them in the third person?
No, but normally Elspeth is doing her own actions. So I refer to her as her, or she.
Yeah.
But now they're both kind of in the forefront of her mind. So they're more a they.
Oh, I get you.
You know what I mean?
Okay. I thought you meant third person point of view. And I'm like, we do refer to them in third person point of view. He, she.
Yeah.
But you mean, I know what you mean.
It gets even...
You're thinking French, first person, second,
yes,
third.
Yes, third.
Yeah, I get you. Third person pluriel.
Pluriel, yeah. But also singulier, parce que c'est juste une personne. So yeah. She snaps back to her head, basically, and hears Ravyn say that he's on the stairs, and Hauth and Orith, oh yeah, I already said that, ask what's wrong with her eyes, because they're yellow, and then they smile up at him, her and the nightmare together.
Which sounds super terrifying, not gonna lie.
Super terrifying. Her head is bleeding, and she's just
smiling with weird eyes.
With yellow eyes that weren't yellow a few minutes ago. I'm like, I would leave. But they don't.
Probably should.
And then her and the nightmare say, don't try to save us, Ravyn, we cannot be saved. And then they strike and start beating the shit out of Orith and Hauth. They pull Orith's glove off and snap bone because it's attached to his bone.
His hooky thing?
Or did they just...
His
what?
hooky thing?
His claw thing, yeah. I don't know if they I don't know if it's attached to his bones or if they just snap his hand while they take it off of him. One of the two.
I don't like it.
Yeah, it's not great. And then they just shove it into his throat to kill him. Which is, And he just dies. And we're like, this is the guy that we were going to use his blood to get rid of the... But okay. Okay, cool.
Oopsie.
And Hauth just says stop. And I don't know if he's using the scythe card or not, but they just smile at him and say that they came in the night and burned down his castle and put his kin to the sword. And the usurper was crowned, but nothing is safe, nothing is free, debt follows all men. And then he says, when the Shepherd King returns, a new day will ring, death to the Rowans and long live the king. And then they just attack Hauth.
Wouldn't it be hilarious if, as the Shepherd King, she's like, I'm the king? Like, I mean, the Shepherd King as Elspeth kills all the Rowan. It's like, I am now the king. And everyone's looking at her like, pretty sure you're a 20-year-old girl, but all right.
Yeah. Well, really, though, because, like, he still has, like, her body and her voice. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But he could do it. Who's going to stop her? Him. Them.
Oh, it's getting confusing.
Yeah. Elspeth then asks the nightmare if this is the end. And the nightmare just tells her that it was inevitable. And this is her degeneration and nothing is free. And she asks him to promise to help Ravyn and to save Emery. And he tells her it's time. But she insists. So he does promise to help the U's in all their endeavors. And I'm like, I'm glad he fucking did, because if he didn't...
Also, all the U's in all of their endeavors?
I know, I'm like, this is a wild... Like, you clearly don't know about the Fae. Nobody would make this deal.
This is a bargain you don't want to make.
Yeah. So, she, in their head, closes her eyes and whispers their story. There once was a girl, clever and good, who tarried in shadow in the depths of the wood. There was also a king, a shepherd by his crook, who reigned over magic and wrote the old book. The two were together, so the two were the same. And then the nightmare finishes it, saying, the girl, the king, and the monster they became. And we just assume that she, like, drifts off into nothingness inside of the head, is what I assume. Mm-hmm. So we get our last chapter head card thing. And it's about the Twin Alders. Be wary the green, be wary the trees. Be wary the song of the wood on your sleeves. You'll step off the path to blessings and wrath. Be wary the song of the wood on your sleeves.
Interesting.
So, I only know what it means at all because of what happens in the last book and, like, the last few chapters. So it's like...
So you really can't say anything.
Yeah. Because when I read it the first time, I was like, what the fuck? But yeah. So we kind of go into a different point of view now. It's kind of like Ravyn's point of view, but like in Elspeth's point of view, because the nightmare was there, even though it was third person, you kind of got like more in her head thoughts that I feel like you get of the other characters. But so we go, and Ravyn and Elm are in the dungeons now, and it's cold, and Elm asks if he's sleeping. But Ravyn says he's having nightmares of yellow eyes burned into his mind. And we basically immediately get a flashback. And it's them barging into the room. And he shouts to Elspeth in her head. And Jesper has to break the door down with her black horse card. And they all fly in, Ravyn, Jesper, and Elm. And there's just blood everywhere. And they just see that, like, Orth is dead. Elspeth is slumped against the far wall, and he goes over to her, but she's cold. And he tries to search for a heartbeat, but then she coughs, so he's like, cool, she's alive. And Jesper goes over to Hauth and says that he's still alive, but there's something wrong with his leg.
Oh, no, I shouldn't.
We're like, what the fuck did she do?
Oh, no, I shouldn't laugh, but he's such a terrible person.
Yeah.
Oh my god, is the king gonna make Elm the new crown prince or heir because Hauth, his legs were all weird?
Well, he's also like knocked out. He's not in a good place because she like punched him in the head multiple times and like split his eye. Like he's not.
I'm just going by what the king says later on. It says like he's alive, but he'll never be the same.
Oh yeah,
so,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
Does that mean in book 2 is Elm gonna be the crown prince now?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And I'm avoiding answering.
Oh, for the love of all that's holy. I feel like this is a minor question here.
But it's not.
It's not?
No.
Oh, God. Okay.
So, Ravyn says that he thought that she was dead, and she says that she's just waking up, and he says to take her time, and she responds that she's had more time than he could ever know. And this is more like when he's, like, she's not there anymore. Mm-hmm. We know that, but he doesn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
So Ravyn asks what happened, and she says that they were going to turn him in, and Ravyn in, and Jesper asks if she killed him, and she says that his claw, like Orth, because they were going to use Orth's blood, blah, 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 blah. But she says that Orth's claw began the slaughter of dozens of magical children, and he deserved to die by it.
So is that...
And Elm says...
So I'm guessing the claw itself was like an heirloom in his family?
I don't know, like because he uses the claw to get the blood, and then something in his infection tells him if it's magic.
Right.
I don't.
But if it says his claw began the slaughter of dozens of magical children, began.
I guess over his life. Yeah, I don't know, because it was probably hundreds or more throughout the past 500 years.
Yeah.
So yeah. Elm then is like, but we were going to use his blood to save Emery. And Elspeth says they should call the Destriers. Better they know it was her alone that did this. And they're just like, what the fuck are you talking about? And Elm says she's bleeding, and Ravyn reaches for her, but she says, don't touch me. And then her eyes flare yellow, and he yells her name in her head, but the Shepherd King answers, and there's no peep from her at all. And the Shepherd King says, now, Ravyn, you let her rest. And he asks what he's done. And the Shepherd King says that she set him free, and says that he's here to help Ravyn. And Ravyn's just like, let her out or he'll... And the King's like, you'll what? How could you hurt me without hurting her? Which is just like... classic.
You know what this reminds me of? That plot line in Supernatural where Sam has the angel in his head. And they share a body. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. It could... You said Supernatural and I was like, Demon Dean or... like, there's so many different...
No, because Demon Dean... Well, I guess you could say, like, Michael Dean.
If you... Yeah. But Demon Dean, if you, like, actually gave Dean a... wound that would kill a person, when the demon left, he might have died.
Yeah, but Demon Dean, it was just him as a demon. It wasn't.
Yeah,
it wasn't another person. So like you could say Michael Dean, you could say Lucifer Sam, you could say Angel Sam, you could say Castiel.
Yeah,
just as a person with Jimmy. There's lots of examples.
Yeah, there are.
God.
So Elm asks Ravyn what's happening, and Ravyn just says, it's not her, it's him.
Have they clued Jesper in on this? Like, does Jesper know?
They must have at some point, or she's just like standing there like, what the fuck? And then the Shepherd King in Elspeth's body puts out his arms and says that he's killed the king's physician and maimed the heir of the throne and is infected with magic, and he surrenders himself to the captain of the Destriers for an inquest by the king. And, like, that's the end of the flashback. Yeah. So, in the dungeon, Ravyn tells Elm that the Shepherd King made it clear he wanted to help them, but he doesn't trust him. But without the Shepherd King, they'd all be in the dungeon, because, like, Hauth would have told on them. Kind of bullshit. The King, Jesper, and another Destrier show up, and they unlock the door, and they go deeper into the dungeon, and then they get to a section that usually holds a bunch of people, but it only holds Elspeth at this point. And it hurts Ravyn to see her, and she looks so much like she used to, but also so different. And he thinks that he's going to find the final card, lift the mist, save Emery, and free Elspeth from the darkness that consumes her. Like, that's sweet of you, but how? The king asks then why she isn't chained, but a destrier says that they couldn't. And she apparently sent like a bunch of destriers to the physicians with lacerations. And the king just says, get her up. And she stirs. And the king says that she wouldn't speak to the captain. She would just speak to him. And that she can see cards. And that she was going to make him an offer in exchange for her life. And he says, like, why should he accept an offer from her? Because she killed his physician. And his son will never be the same if he survives at all. He says that she is an enemy of the vilest quality, and nothing will give him more pleasure than killing her, and anyone who harbored her.
Yikes.
Which is unfortunate and means, like, her entire family, even though most of them are shit. So the Shepherd King responds and says, kill me, even dead, he will not die. So I guess, like, his soul would go somewhere else, I guess. Like,
yikes.
I don't know.
Yikes.
Maybe it would go to the other nightmare card.
Oh,
maybe. It's half of it's already in it. Like,
maybe.
Are they like Horcruxes? Not to get into.
Yeah, we're opening a can here.
Yeah, I can't. So yeah, he then says that he's the shepherd of shadow, the phantom of fright, the demon in the daydream, and the nightmare in the night. And he says, kill me, usurper, and you will never collect the deck, and the spirit of the wood will consume blunder. And he says that he, as in the Shepherd King, may be gone, but in 100 years it is the Rowans who will be forgotten, and the destrier's bones clacking in the wind, and his name turned to rot, and the Providence cards will be lost, and he has seen it all before, the salt of magic in the air, the turn of the tide.
Yikes.
So the king asks what he wants, and he says, same as you, to collect the deck, but first they need to release Emery to his parents. And the king says he needs blood, but the nightmare says that he already has it because he has his blood. And the king asks if he'd trade his life for the boy, and the nightmare says that's his offer.
Mm-hmm.
Ravyn then tries to use his nightmare card, but is just like blocked out of Elspeth Nightmare's head. And the king asks what he gets in return for letting him live to Solstice. And the nightmare responds, the Twin Alder. And the king says, it's been lost for hundreds of years. How will he find it? And
I'd like to know the king's plan, too.
Yeah, well, he doesn't have a fucking plan. He's useless. But the nightmare / the Shepherd King says, the Twin Alders is hidden in a place with no time, a place of great shadow and bloodshed and crime. Betwixt ancient trees, where the mist cuts bone deep, the last card remains waiting, asleep. The wood knows no road, no path through the snare. Only I can find the Twin Alders, for it was I who left it there. And we're like, basically...
So, like, he's the
Shepherd King?
Basically, he knew that where the card was this entire time?
Kind of. He knows how to get it, but he can't get it with Elspeth's body anyway.
Oh.
But that's for book 2. And that's how this book ends, which is why, was it last book, I think? I brought up, like, can you have a romantasy series if this first book doesn't end in it? Like, this book doesn't end in a happily ever after. Like, she gone.
Mm-mm.
There's no, like, Ravyn and Elspeth aren't together. She's not even in his head anymore.
But, like...
in her own head.
But I'm sorry. I guess I feel like it's fine because I am comforted in the knowledge that the ending will be happy.
Yeah, because
You
we
know
know
what I
that
mean?
it's a
Like, we
romance
know that
series.
it's a romance series. So, like, I actually don't hate this. And I can't remember what I said when we had this discussion ages ago.
Yeah, I think we kind of said, like, if we know that. But my issue was I hadn't finished the second book, and I didn't actually know if it ended happy. Because, like, you finish this one, and you're like, how the fuck? Like, they got to use her blood to break the curse, and she's not even in her head anymore. Like, how are we getting her back? Was what I was thinking when I first finished this book.
Yeah.
But then I just immediately started the next one, so it was fine.
I do have it down on my shelf. I'm going to start it probably in the morning.
That's fair. So yeah, any thoughts that you haven't already thoughted?
I like this story, but I actually don't like Elspeth, which, like, saddens me. Like, she doesn't feel like a really strong, like, female character that I enjoy.
Yeah, I kind of had that moment in the first week too, where I was like, when she like ran from her family's house because of the evil stepmother. I was like, this is an interesting character to like, because when you never want to think yourself as weak or like that you'd be like that in a situation. So it's hard to empathize with a character that is doing that because it's not what you would want to do if that situation happened to you. Yeah.
And like, I don't know, like, I just want, there are many different ways to be a badass female character. And it just feels like she was written very passively. Like, she doesn't do anything on her own. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, she's your very classic damsel in distress.
Well, I feel like basically the first week we read, she's like attacked by the highwayman, and she's like, this is the first time I asked for the nightmare's help. And I'm like, well, why didn't we get any of the time? No, the second time, because the first time was when she couldn't get up after she like fell out the window. But that's almost like, that's like 10 years later or something was the second time she asked. I'm like, we could have used maybe a few years in between to see her as a actual well-rounded character without getting the nightmare's help.
Yeah.
Because like immediately she's asking for his help, and we're like, this is what she does. She always asks for his help. But it's like, she hasn't since that day, and you're like, that doesn't seem likely because she's asking for it every 2 chapters now.
Yeah, so it's like, we literally see her, she is in danger, she either asks for Nightmare's help, or when she gets to know Ravyn, then she's, like, needs Ravyn's assistance. Like, she's just, I'm trying to think of moments when she was alone and doing something that I appreciated, and really the only thing I could think of is her decision to try and help that little boy.
Yeah.
That was a decision she made. However, she urged Elm to do something about it, which caused the whole hullabaloo in the first place. Yeah. Like, that caused all the drama and everything in the first place, because she was like, Elm, you don't need Ravyn, you just need you, and, like, encouraged him to step up and do something about it. And it was probably not the right decision. As much as I appreciate the fact that she wanted to help that child, like, that was not the right decision in that time. Yeah. Because she essentially threw threw Elm under the bus. Then she, like, called attention to herself. Then she had to use Nightmare again. Like, it was just not a good decision. So, like, I'm trying to think what makes her likable and redeemable, and I can't think of anything. Because all she does is gets herself in trouble, asks for help. Gets herself in trouble, asks for help. Gets herself in trouble, causes trouble for everybody else. So, like, I don't know. That's sort of my biggest issue with this book is, like, what can I say about Elspeth?
Yeah, no, I get that.
So, but, like, how bad is it that I like Nightmare better than I like her?
I felt the same way, though. 100%. I just love Nightmare. Everything he says, everything he does, his sarcasm. I'm just like, yes, please. You are my favorite.
Yeah. Anyway, I am going to read the next book, but, like, I'm not happy about it. But like, there's just too many things that I need wrapped up.
Yeah.
Speaking of wrapping it up, we're wrapping it up this week. Did you think I was going dirty?
No, I just laughed at you nailed it. You did so good with the wrap up. It just was so smooth, and I just had to laugh about it.
Okay, that's fine. So, if you want to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in our episodes, or if you have any book suggestions for us, please reach out to us by email at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com or on Instagram or Facebook at coffeeandcoread, and then on TikTok at coffee.coread.
Yeah. So next week,
we're doing it.
/ next month, we're starting a new book.
An endeavor.
Oh, we are starting an endeavor. So we're starting Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas, which is the last book in the Throne of Glass series.
That we haven't touched in a year. If you remember last year, we did the tandem read for July and August.
Ideal.
It was ideal.
Yeah. So we've been thinking about it, and this one book is almost 1,000 pages. So we've decided to do it over 2 months. Mm-hmm. So we are going to do it for
May and June.
May and June, yeah. And it's still going to be long as fuck episodes.
We'll have so much to say.
Right? And it's a killer of a book. But next week we are just going to start with chapters 1 to 10. So if you want to read with us, you definitely can. This book has 121 chapters. Which is just insane. But we're just bit by bit, week by week. So make sure to follow along. And if you're enjoying our chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you get our content. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you on the next page.